Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jolynn from WonHeart TV, and I've got a special guest with me today. We're going to be talking about how to cultivate compassion. And I've really been looking forward to this because myself and WonHeart, we've been working in this typical avenue as well, but it's a difficult one sometimes. People don't really understand how to be compassionate, especially today. So, well, I just want to introduce my very good indeed, friend, Joan Marie, who's going to talk about this today. Joan, welcome. Welcome to One Heart.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to
You
be
bet.
here.
You bet. You know, you've done so much work in your community. I think you're based out of Sacramento area. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And I'm going to let you talk about yourself. That's what I usually do. Can you share a bit about all the kind of work you do? You have your hands in everything, literally. So
Well, I am a massage therapist, so it would make sense I have my hands on things.
there you
But,
go.
I'm an artist and a massage therapist. This is my 30th year in doing body work. And so those are kind of my primary. And what evolved from that was I worked at a doctor's office, and she wanted to do a community event. And so for 5 years, I produced the Day of Peace events, and that is with the United Nations, the International Day of Peace. And so what I loved about that was we had it was multi-generational. And I believe that we can have education through celebration, that when people are having fun, they're a lot more open to learning, and then, music and all that stuff. And so that it was just kind of a natural progression that I was invited into the compassion work that was happening. And Karen Armstrong started it. If people are not familiar with the Charter for Compassion, I love TED Talks. And so you can go on TED Talk and listen to her. And it's fabulous what she talks about. And that got me really intrigued about the work. And so locally, my office is, I call it Compassion Central. And as a body worker, I work with Healing Hands, Healing Hearts. And so we work with the critically, chronically, and terminally ill. So we
Oh.
have the whole spectrum of our human existence, of our humanity. And so with that, that got me involved with the deep dive of compassion work, especially being part of hospice and things like that. Anyway, you want to expand your awareness about that. And so I got involved with Compassionate California, which is they're still in the works with getting enough cities on local levels to become compassionate cities and counties to eventually have enough momentum to qualify to become a compassionate state. I also work with Compassionate Women and Girls, which is global. And then also with the locally is compassionate capital region. And what that is, there's 7 major counties that are in Northern California. So we just wanted to kind of create a body and really start to try and figure out like how best to support those counties, because individually we can't do it all, right? We need to get people passionate about doing the work. And so what that did was that allowed us to start focusing with Compassionate Sacramento.
Mm.
So we went ahead and worked with Sacramento becoming a compassionate city. And what that means is it doesn't magically become a compassionate city. It took
Right.
us it took us about a year and a half in 2017 in diligently attending the city council meetings and creating a resolution. and bringing that to the city council. We got the city council to pass that. So then it took another year where we launched an event. We call it Compassion in Action. So we have an event that, because I'm involved, it's along the themes of the Day of Peace. So we like the celebration and also having the elements. So we have people that are already doing good work in the communities to offer information to the people that are coming about how they can get involved. So now with COVID, what we have been doing is a lot of Zoom, like most people are doing. And so we are working with sacred conversation and those deeper conversations of compassion. So that's, kind of a really quick overview of what we're doing here. So.
Now that sounds so similar here in Santa Maria, where I am. We've done Peace Week. I was involved with Sister Janet and using inspiration through peace chairs. One woman had individuals painting chairs with their own take on it, usually the
What a
youth.
great
Youth
idea.
and peace chairs. You and I are in the arts, And then we had, of course, myself and I had my students singing. We had lots of entertainment by various people. It's primarily around the arts. And I have to tell you, I'm so glad that you and I are talking about this because so much of the compassion, don't you believe, comes from the creatives, the heart, the center of our artists, the musicians, the dancers, you name it. That's where our creativity comes from and our compassion. Don't you? What do you think about that?
Oh my gosh, I could not agree with you more. I'm part of the Compassionate Arts Council.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I really believe, especially right now, that's where the biggest change is going to come, because artists, being an artist is one of the avenues where we could be most radical in sharing concepts.
Right.
And I feel in being an artist that's where my bridge of language in with spirit, I call it spirit, whether it's God or, whatever anybody
Right.
calls it,
Right.
I call it spirit. So that's the word I'm going to keep using. But that's where I have the strongest connection with spirit, is when I'm doing art, and I feel very guided and connected that way. So in that avenue, I agree, but I also think that compassion needs to be cultivated. And,
Yes.
and so
Yes.
one of those things one of the gifts that I learned from doing the Day of Peace
Mm-hmm.
is that peace doesn't, I learned it on a visceral level. Peace does not come from outside of us.
No.
It has to come from inside. So with that said, that means we have to look at where we're at war inside ourselves.
Very good.
And
War, you mean emotional, like what we call the monkey mind, that thing that
on
talks.
all levels, on
Okay.
all levels. And with ourselves, a lot of times we're harder on ourselves than anyone else could ever be.
Yes,
And
we
so
are.
that's an aspect of how we're at war inside ourselves. How kind are we being with ourselves? Because that will be a reflection on the outside world as well. And
Truly,
so
truly. I agree with you
that's a big piece. And
100%.
forgiveness too. Forgiveness is a whole other thing to talk about. But, one of my mantras is, if I'm feeling hurt by somebody, I try and work with the concept of forgiving people the way I would want to be forgiven.
Right.
Because
Right.
I make mistakes, I make big mistakes. But I hope that anybody that knows me would know that it's not in my makeup to intentionally try and hurt somebody. But that doesn't
Right.
mean I don't hurt anybody. And so
Correct.
when I do, if they're open to letting me know and be aware, that's where some really deep healing and work can occur. And that's part of what I love with the Compassionate Women and Girls is, with the United Nations, there's 17 sustainable development goals. And what happened, and Sandy Hart was listening with Lisa Berkeley about a resilience call where they were saying the concept of personal agency and accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have it in plain sight right now that if we can't be accountable for our own behavior, how is anything ever going to change? Nothing will.
I have been really, really adamant about the self realization and looking within, having done it with myself. I think you have too. And that's where it starts. Don't you agree? That is
Oh,
where it
absolutely. Well,
all
and,
starts.
and accepting that it will be a lifelong journey.
Oh, that's a
We
good
don't
one.
do it and it ends.
Yeah,
If
it
we
does
think we're
not.
done, we're going to get a swift kick in the behind,
Right.
and a really good dose of humility that'll say, oh, no, no, no.
Right. No.
We always have something to learn, or else we wouldn't need to be here anymore, right?
Well, I think what's lovely too that what you said, even on our talk with Sandy Hart, who's a part of the group, a red tent. Wouldn't you call it the group that meets?
Yes. I'm a steward of the red tent. I wear all
I
these hats.
know. I jumped in on that group. I hadn't been with you guys for a while, but it was so nice to hear you all that. So glad I did because I got you right now for a half an hour. But there was some things that you talked about, and I want to bring them up because I really liked them that you touched on the other day when we were talking on the phone. And that was you said there's individual work by women right now and something about merging those together. Can you elaborate that a little bit?
Yes. Well, uh, I'd like to do just a really quick kind of overview about the red tent. So people that may not be familiar
Right.
with what the
Please
red
do.
tent is, then it'll make
Please
more
do.
sense. There's a red tent movement. There was a book written about the red tent and they made a movie about that. And so the way I like to explain it is legend has it that when tribes were more nomadic, that there was a tent that was allowed for women when they were on their moon cycle. And
Right.
that when they were on their moon cycle, it was understood that that was a more tender time and an introspective time. And so they didn't have to complete their tasks and their daily chores and stuff. Other people would do them for them. And so inside that red tent, what ended up evolving was the female experience, because
Right.
it started to include birth through death, and
Mm-hmm.
that includes celebration as well as tears. And I've read things where there were times when women gave birth that they were surrounded by a circle of women singing, celebrating this baby coming into the world. Like, can you imagine how beautiful that was?
Yeah, that
And
does.
so what
Um,
we've done is created a safe space under the imagery of a red tent. Now, physically, last year we were doing physical red tents, so women would come, and I'm really connected with Mary Magdalene, and so part of the ritual that I would bring to it is washing their feet and welcoming them, because washing their feet is symbolic of leaving where they have come behind for a little bit. So,
hmm.
kind of cleansing that and welcoming them into a safe space where they could gather and commune. Communing is really important for women. It's important for humans, but I'm talking from a female perspective. And so we would come in circle. And so we learn the concepts of sacred circle, and we talk and dance and um, hold space and laugh, cry, whatever rolls out, we show up for. And a lot of times people will bring food, so we're nourishing our bodies. The four elements that I share about the red tent are the need to commune, to undulate, to nourish, and truth telling.
Oh,
So we
truth
need
telling.
those
Ooh,
four
okay.
elements, and that really gives us space to really blossom more into more of an evolved place as a human being and in the body of a woman.
Right.
So,
Beautiful, beautiful. Right.
so that's the red 10 part. I forgot the other
No,
question.
that's okay.
Sorry.
It is the individual work of women, and there's so many. That's why I'm pulling and interviewing so many women locally and
Yeah.
outside now, and how we're merging together. So
Yes.
how do you see that helping in terms of, helping build more compassion, other than women tend to be on the empathic side a little more,
Anyway,
or
yeah.
intuitive, whatever?
Well,
Yes,
there's
go
some interesting elements, and part of it is, if I can say the word, is women are badass, and that they're not
on. I
always,
love it. Of course.
allowed to be. And so,
Right.
part of the thing about the red tent is when you learn more of the art of sacred listening,
Mm-hmm.
that you start relating that people that you may not know will share a resonance that you realize you're not alone,
Right.
that we're learning similar lessons, that other people are holding deep wisdom that can like just ignite you.
It's true.
And so as women, I think we've, kind of lost that ability, or permission to come into circle. And so that's part of what you stepped into was the virtual red tent, which, Sarah, Sarah, and that embodies all different religions, women in all different religions to come on and just share. And we had one where all they asked was, who or what are you praying for?
Mm.
And just listening, we each had a minute and a half to 2 minutes to just to share, no feedback or anything, just sacred listening. The power of that not knowing half of these women, the bonding that was automatically created was
Wow.
profound. You
Wow.
could feel it because especially now there's so many layers of grief happening right now.
Oh,
And
yes.
and so the red tent is really needed. Now, Greta Grace is down in Southern California, and what she's doing that I think is fabulous, and this goes back to the question that you had initially asked, was that she's doing red tent down there, and then her husband is doing blue tent.
Oh,
And
I've
so
never heard
that's
that.
men's
I've
work.
never heard of blue tent
Isn't that
before.
cool? Well, it gets better. Listen to this. So then the space that they've created when men and women come together is the purple tent.
Ooh.
Like, isn't
Ooh.
that the best?
It
And even
is.
chakra wise, purple is more of that regal, that
Right.
elevated consciousness. So that's going to be the real power. But first, we really need that safe space for women and that
Yes.
safe space for men. It needs to be separate. And then you come from a more safe space within yourself that you
Almost,
won't be
almost like from
triggered.
the heart, don't you think? You
And
coming
the
from more
womb.
from the heart and the
And the
womb.
womb.
That's something I don't think we women think about as much as maybe we should, because we all came from there, but we also, yeah, wow, I've never quite heard it
You
said
know,
this way.
I it, one of the things about getting older that I am like so appreciating is you get all these opportunities to have life experiences. So you become
Mhm.
a fairly good storyteller because you've got all these great stories to tell. But in this work, I got involved with the vagina monologues in raising
Oh, of
awareness
course.
for, to stop violence towards women and children. And so, having no clue what I was getting myself into, I was told that I had the role of the moaner.
Hmm.
And so, what I learned from that was to own your moan. That when you, because especially that role, have you seen the vagina monologues?
I have, I have.
Okay, do you know
How'd
which
it
one
go?
the moaner is?
No, you have to refresh my memory because it's been a while.
Okay, well, she's usually the role you won't forget, but she's the one that goes through all the different kinds of orgasms, the sound of
Oh,
orgasm.
okay. Of course, of
Okay.
course.
So that's a badass role that you can't like kind of do.
No.
You have to make the decision, okay, I'm going in.
What, like
So
Meg
I had
Ryan and Sally met, yeah, that
yeah,
role.
yeah, like when
Oh,
Harry met
oh,
Sally, yeah.
yeah.
and I'll have what she's having.
Yeah,
But the cool thing
that's good.
about that is because I knew that I would completely bomb. I cried when I got the role because it was like, how am I going to do this? Like that's, oh my gosh, talk about facing a fear. But I
Yeah,
knew that if I didn't do it 100%, it would bomb.
right.
And so I had to dive in and just own it and go for it. And what that taught me was our truest voice does not come from our throat. It comes from our womb because
Oh,
the womb connects us with the earth.
beautiful. That's
So
beautiful.
it
Wow.
comes from the goddess, it comes from Mother Earth, and it comes up and out. So that's the place I did it from. And it
And
was
in
awesome.
so many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. If you
Yeah.
have a clip of that, we'd have to share that for sure.
Well, the
That's
beautiful thing about Eve Ensler's work is some people have done it and put it on YouTube, but they request that it's not recorded.
oh, well, oh, okay.
So I did it in front of 1,000 people. So, and I still have people, oh my God, you were the moaner.
Well, be
So
proud of your moanness.
I'm proud of my moans.
Be
So
proud
yeah.
of it. You know, there was some stuff you had here. There was a line that you had off of your website, and I will put that below in when I replay this video. Um, it had to do with entering the orchid, and I know I would like you to expand on the orchid a little bit
Okay.
and how that might tie in with compassion. But what I loved was something you said in a little bit of your video clip. It was when you serve the community, you serve yourself, or we serve ourselves. I thought, wow, that needs to be mandated some way in schools to teach empathy, compassion, but to serve your community, to serve yourself. That was just that hit me really
Very
right
cool.
in the
Thank
heart.
you.
Yeah.
There's a beauty. One of the things they recommend if you're feeling depressed, go help somebody.
Right. I've heard of that so many times. And
And I
it's
think
true.
and it's true. You feel better. It feels good to know that you're being of service. And, I have this personal feeling that if we consciously chose to be kinder in schools, that we would get this hate and bullying out. We would change the world in 3 generations or less.
Yes.
That to me, that bullying is so prevalent. We need sacred circle. Like, look at the power. If you had the whole classroom, if a child was bullied,
Mm-hmm.
if they sat in the center of the circle, the whole class sits there with the teacher and maybe a counselor, school counselor. So it's
Right.
not only the responsibility of the teacher, but you're teaching the concepts of sacred circle as children. And you have the bully and the bullier in the center. And the bully gets to hear how their actions hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually a bully is hurting people because they have so much hurt inside that they don't know what to do with. And so I think that would pull so much out. And we've heard it over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Comedians, how do they become a comedian? I was bullied. I learned how to make them laugh, and
So
that
many of them.
they
So
befriend,
many of them. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so that changes the dynamic. And energy wise, with the chakras, the third chakra, when it's undeveloped, that is the bully. It has too much energy and it needs to pop. Part of how
Right.
it pops is through laughter.
Right.
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 So we could,
After.
and they could be children at home that are they could be beaten up by their parents. We don't know the story of the bully.
We
And
don't.
I think that needs to be told more. So, because a bully is trying to feel empowered
Right.
and they're feeling disempowered, or
Right.
else they would need to try and feel that way, right?
Right.
So that
Exactly.
whole concept of compassion and caring about, a child feels disempowered when they're hurting, and nothing is worse than the abuser when you're a child, by the person that's taking care of you. You
Right.
don't, how do you protect yourself in that? You can't.
No. And
So
trauma is going to be one of our worst things to deal with, and there's going to be so much of that coming out. I did anti-bully work with my with WonHeart and assemblies, and we talked about the balloon and what happens when a balloon gets expands and expands, and the children were on it. They were on it, Joan Marie. They said it's going to pop. It's going to pop, and so that was from
and
Soul
we
Shop.
need that right now. I hope, I don't know um what you're doing for the school year that's coming up, but that's going to be so needed because we have
Right.
so many layers of grief happening right now. And
Yeah.
children, this is the part about the empathy work and understanding about empathy, that everyone is empathic. However, there's usually one child in the family system, the family dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
that will take on the emotional unaccountability of the other people in the house.
Right.
So if the parents don't know how to deal with their own emotions, the child will, excuse me, take it on. And that's part of what makes a kid feel like they're crazy, because they have all these
Too
emotions
much.
that they don't know how to deal with.
Too much. Yes, yes, yes. I totally agree. You know, cultivating, going back to cultivating a compassion, um, we said it starts within ourselves, which I fully agree. And if I always thought the younger the better, you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. I would
So
totally agree.
I was putting tools, not MVC, nonviolent communication tools, into the songs that I did because I used music as part of it. Um, but you know, it's getting to those parents too. That was a question that was always asked of me. How do we get to those parents that just they're struggling too?
They're
And
struggling. Cool.
yeah,
Well, and I think that's part of why we need more resources available, and we need to let people know that they are available. A lot of times
yes,
people don't know. The other thing that I think is really interesting, and are you familiar with Alec Baldwin? That
sure.
Okay. Well, one of the things he shared is his daughter is in school, and because he has a young one, he's remarried and all that, but she's been going to school and learning these meditation tools, breathing techniques, all these beautiful things. She's teaching him. So that's part of
Fabulous.
the positive effect, that even if the adult isn't reached, the child becomes, part of the learning system of health and well-being for the whole family system, which is beautiful.
Oh, that's lovely. That's a great tool. Children should be able to teach their parents, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't see a problem with that. They'd have to be willing, but you
And
bet.
the
Yeah.
wisdom is, there's such a purity from the place that they come from, that boy, it goes to your core.
It sure does. It sure does. You know, I can tell that our half an hour talk here is already over. Can you believe it? And I think there is so much more to talk about this. And I love your work in the peace part of it. I always thought at Peace Week, it's again, Sister Janet started it. We were on 18 years, and a lot of people didn't even know about
Is
this
it a
beautiful
specific date?
week. This was a week-long festivities, and she also tried to use people in Santa Maria that were already doing the work. Do you know what I mean?
Can you just pick a week, or is it a specific week each
It
year?
was usually a specific time, and it's been a while now. And but
Because the Day of Peace is September 21st.
let's
And
talk
they,
about that because that's one of the big things you end it with that is coming up, and I want to bring that. And one last thing about peace. Peace sometimes seems like such a big. I want peace in the world, and I used to think, whew, let's hone it down. How can we
it's
hone it down?
unimaginable,
Yeah,
right?
it
Like
seems
when you start,
too big.
well,
But
and it puts
mhm,
you in that peace, love, dove kind of mode,
yeah,
that
what
it's
is that? What
unrealistic.
is that? Yeah.
And it really is about, look at war, look at how you're at war inside yourself,
Right,
how you'll
right.
get peace.
Yeah. So let's go back to September 21st. You're right. This is a big time. It's coming up. I know you've got an event. Let's talk about it before we end.
Yeah. Well, very briefly, because I'd love to, dive deeper another time if you're open to that. And I'd love to share with people to get more involved. But with either Sarah or the Compassionate Women and Girls, or, Charter for Compassion, there's just so
Right.
many avenues, resources that people don't always know about. But the Day of Peace is it's an event that just honors a day of peace, and
Mm-hmm.
whatever that means. And so you can create and just like the compassion work, you can't go into a community and say, okay, this is what you guys need. Every community is going to look a little different and have different needs. So it's really addressing where the people that are gathering are at. But I've honored for the last 10 years, Spirit moved me to acknowledge Julia Ward Howe's Mother's Day Peace
Right.
Proclamation. And that was done right after the Civil War. And I believe it is a verbiage that goes outside of time and speaks truth with a capital T.
Mm-hmm.
And that she created a template that is so relevant today. And that's what we're trying to do, is really acknowledge and create a space to finally honor, after 150 years, that we are acknowledging this woman's vision. Can you imagine how badass that woman had to have been right after the Civil War to stand up and say, we want women of all nationalities to come together and talk of the greater needs of peace? That is relevant right now. And, to bring it back, because I know we're short on time, but to bring it back to the beginning, when if people watched any of the marches or if they participated, there was one, because buildings were boarded up,
Mm-hmm.
someone had spray painted on the wall that when he called out, or all women, all mothers gather, when he called out the name mama.
Right.
George Floyd called out to his mother. And if anyone, anyone who has been a mother and or loves somebody else,
Right.
that's somebody else's child, that how can we not feel moved to a place of action? And that's part of why we want women to gather and empower themselves first, because
Right.
once you come from a more empowered place, your spirit, how you connect with spirit, will guide you to where you will be most effective. All you have to do is ask
Right.
that, and it'll come from inside you, from your heart and your womb. It will tell you where to go.
Just have to be quiet and listen. Just give that opportunity. We're
That's
such busy
sacred
people.
listening. Sacred
That's
listening.
sacred listening. Yes, and that was an important thing. I think that's on your website, isn't it? That whole verbiage. I think I watched a recording of that whole speech that she did. She was trying to get, wasn't it, the
It's
vote
it's
for
profound.
women?
It's profound, yes. And the suffragette, we have not healed as a nation from what occurred 100 years ago with the suffragette movement. The 19th Amendment passed 100 years ago, and yet currently, if we just think about it for 2 seconds, would we as women, would we ever think that we would need to ask men for permission to vote? Like, come on. So times have changed,
Yes, yes,
and we
yes.
need to stand up and say, because when you look at our political structure, it has been structured by middle class or upper class white men. That's just
Right.
the reality. And so now we need to reassess that structure, and we need all nationalities, and including women, to be included in that process. And that's what we're calling, is that on September 21st, we are doing a clarion call for a General Congress of Women to come together and speak, to grieve first, that a bonding is created, that when we really hear where people are hurting,
Mm.
that creates a different level of empathy and compassion that will take us to a different place, to not be in that airy fairy peace, love, dove place, but
Right.
that deeper place, how that is uncomfortable. And that's what Karen Armstrong talks about as one of the
Oh.
primary things for compassion, is a willingness to be uncomfortable, because
Mhm.
this work is not easy. And a lot of times people think, oh, hippie, we grew up in the 60s, we're a product of the 60s, but now we're in our 60s.
Oh,
And
that's well said. Yes.
we are in a different place, and we need to look at it from a different place.
Yeah.
Time to get
And
real talk.
and, and undoing things is going to be uncomfortable. But if we could see
And
the
one of
other
the lines,
side.
it's one of my favorite lines in the proclamation. We will, and think about this is 150 years old. We will no longer allow important questions to be answered by irrelevant agencies.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That is right now.
Wow.
Right now.
Right now. Yep.
Right
And
now.
I think this is definitely the time. I mean,
Uh,
obviously,
all of it.
my first guest said this is Carrie Asuncion said this is a pause for us. When it happened, the coronavirus, um, everything shut down, and it was good. But after a while, it was like, okay, we want to get back to natural. But it was a pause. If we look at it, a pause to reflect, to see what values are we really looking at? Where are we going? Where are we headed? Um,
Well, and to dive that even deeper, Corona, I try and use the word Corona instead of COVID, because Corona means crown. What's the
yes.
crown
Wow.
of our wisdom that we are learning from this? We need to explore that. We need to embrace
Oh,
that. We
yes.
need to own that and wear it,
Right.
right?
Absolutely. 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 Oh, this has been great. There's a lot of information you gave. I'm going to be putting that up for people that want to check out her site, her artwork, the Red Tent. More on the Red Tent. By the way, I read that book. It is an absolutely phenomenal book for well, I think anybody, but for women, a women's group, right? The Peace Week, September 21st. You can find out more information on Joan Marie's website. I will include that. And Joan, my gosh, thank you for taking this time and talking
Absolutely.
about all the goodies that you're doing. We
Well,
just barely scraped the barrel. We just,
you know what I love? It's part of the joy of being a woman, is that we are meant for bliss. We are not, I
yeah.
feel like, with because women have not been included in the process, that
Hmm.
we have so much more pain and suffering than is ever needed. And it's just time that we bring humanity into our process. We live in inhumane behaviors. They are
Right.
not acceptable. It's not okay how we treat people. It's not okay how we treat the earth. None of this is okay, and it's all been done with from a foundation of greed. And we need to bring it back to humanity, and we'll be okay if we can do that. But we must stand up and at least know that we tried.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, I hope all of you folks out of there watching today on Facebook, and I will replay this again, enjoyed this talk. I have more guests coming, more women speaking their truths, and I think that's what we need right now is a lot of truth in the world. Thank you again, Joan Marie, for
Thank
taking the time,
you.
and to
Thank
all of you folks joining us, you can check out more videos at WonHeart TV on YouTube channel. Please subscribe for more videos, and you can catch the ones that I've done in the past. Thank you again, and everyone
you
have a
so much.
beautiful, beautiful
Bless
afternoon.
you.
Peace, love to you all.
Love, love.
All righty. We're gonna
That's the
we're
fun
gonna
part.
we're gonna end this, and we'll talk soon again. We're not done, Joan.
Yeah.
We're not done. Okay.
No, good. Yay.
All right. And get out there and cultivate some wonderful compassion in your life. Start with yourself. Bye bye.